Two services going on simultaneously. I feel like it is good to go ahead and announce this is the one for Bob Pittman. All right? This is not the one you're expecting, then slowly exit out. All right? Robert Dean Bob Pittman of Miami, Oklahoma, passed from this life Tuesday, October 20th, 2020 at Integris Miami Hospital in Miami, Oklahoma. He was 89 years old. Bob was born September 26, 1931 in Boycourt, Kansas to Glenn and Mary Abiati Pittman. Bob grew up in Bourbon County, Kansas area of Farlington, Kansas, and graduated from Hepler High in Hepler, Kansas. He moved to Miami, Oklahoma in 1954. He served in the Army, doing basic training in El Paso, came back home to marry Dorothy Carpenter, and they were married for 39 years. He served during the Korean conflict, but was stationed in Spokane, Washington. Worked for Medical Milk Company for over 30 years before he retired, then drove Propeller van, was a bus driver for Miami Public School System. I don't know if anybody's noticed the Miami Public School bus sitting right back behind us over here, but that brought a little tear to my eye a while ago whenever they told me what that was about. I was like, why in the world is there a bus here? Oh my goodness, that's pretty meaningful. Grateful for that. He also worked for Walmart in Miami, Oklahoma in the produce department. Bob was preceded in death by Dorothy Pittman in 1992. One son-in-law, Tom Curtsey. His parents, two brothers, Lester Frank Pittman and Billy Ray Pittman. Survivors include two sons, Mike Pittman and wife Gail of Branson, Missouri. Tim Pittman and wife Ginger of Miami. Four daughters, Robin Curtsey of Miami, Shelley Robertson and husband Rick of Quapaw, Marcy Contreras and husband Martin of Joplin, and Candy Pittman of Miami. 17 grandchildren, 26 great-grandchildren, and 4 great-great-grandchildren. I'd say that's a life well lived. At this time, MJ's going to come and sing a song for us. declaring what Jesus has done, they'll kind of get to that midsection where you see the sanctification of the believer, and they always seem to end with a final verse that declares that there will be a home far away that will forever shine. And I love the way that ended there. Thank you for that, MJ. I need you guys to be as gracious as possible today as I try to struggle to get through this. It's never been an easy task to preach these funerals for family, for people I've known my whole life, and people whose loss I genuinely feel. It was so good to sit down yesterday with some of you guys and talk about Poppy, for those of you that were able to be there. And it always amazes me how much more I learn about a person from sitting down in a session like that that I would have never known otherwise. Stories I never would have heard, and unfortunately life gets busy, and every one of us get real busy, and we don't have opportunities to do that near as often as we should. And as I was kind of explaining on a little Facebook post there, that I had an opportunity a few years ago because of a genealogy class I was taking. I'm so grateful I had that opportunity to talk to Poppy and hear all these stories, most of which I had never heard, most of which was completely new material for me, and it just kind of blew my mind a little bit. And I never would have known those things otherwise. I consider it an honor to be able to do this today and to do my best to help us laugh and to cry and to honor a genuinely good man and a life well lived. While talking yesterday, there were a few Poppyisms that seemed to be universal to just about every story. And there was one phrase that I've heard my mom talk about my whole life and came out of the mouth of every one of you guys yesterday. Because anytime any of you would do something frustrating or silly, what were you? I mean, every other story. I'm a preacher. It's a service. It's being recorded. I get it. You're a damn dummy. All right?
Turkey.
You're an old turkey. But for example, Tim gets a stick stuck in his eye. What are you doing with that stick in your eye, damn dummy? I cracked up. We laughed and we cried a lot yesterday. And even here near the end, he seemed to say, Lord have mercy, an awful lot. To the point that even his nurses would do something and then say, I know, Lord have mercy. I know from my mom, I always heard stories growing up about these big vacations you guys would go on. Going all the way across the country. Every one of you yesterday talked about those trips. I know at some point, apparently, the highlight of my mother's life whenever she was crowned the Corn Palace Princess in some godforsaken place I've never heard of. I don't even know what the crap that means. I just don't. Okay? But for some reason, I mean, we need to, even today, crown her the Corn Palace Princess. I know that Mike got crabs at one point. And I'm going to go ahead and explain that one real quick because it can sound real bad otherwise. He picked up actual crabs, a collection of crabs. Was he at the beach? Myrtle Beach. And picked up a bunch of crabs. Leading to an eventual frustrated Nana who said these crabs are crawling all over the place. I heard stories about New Orleans, most of which I'm not going to repeat. Stories about California, the Painted Desert, Grand Canyon, Mom getting stung by a scorpion and passing out. Mom getting ticked off because Poppy and Tim wouldn't rescue her from jellyfish, even though she was perfectly safe on her own raft and felt the need to jump on their raft. And I realized that there's some dispute to that story. Then again, I also know that Mom also really messed up one time by locking Poppy out of the car in the middle of a gully washing rainstorm. And all of these are things that when we were able to talk a little bit later, you want to ask questions about. I've also heard the story about 1,000,000 times about how Poppy had told Mom that there's a string in your belly button that if you pull it, all your skin will fall off. Which Mom went and repeated to her teacher at school. And that teacher informed Mom that her dad was lying to her. And Mom just about went full water boy on Colonel Sanders up there and for calling her dad a liar. I know Mickey got a little confused at an early age because he didn't think Poppy liked him because Poppy liked to thump him on the head. Little did he know that Poppy was showing love to him. And so I feel like all of us should thump Mickey on the head today just to make sure he knows that he's well loved. All right? There were a lot of times that we remember guys said he never missed a football game and never missed a wrestling match that was within a reasonable driving distance. He loved to travel the country with you guys, and he loved to make memories, and that's who he was, and it was clearly successful. As he and Nana made a lot of memories with you guys, and you'll never forget those. I know Mike and Gail said that he moved you guys across the country a couple times. Mike also mentioned that God literally orchestrated a miracle of sorts in moving them back around here to the Kansas City job just in time to spend a really good year with Nana before she passed. And that Poppy helped move, helped pay for, helped do a little bit of everything he could to get you back here. I know some of my younger siblings and none of the great-grandkids have any memory of Nana. But let me tell you, you missed that. And I don't mean that to sound as an offensive thing, but I just mean to say that she was something else. She would spare no expense when it came Christmas time. There was nothing going to hold her back. She was going to make every one of these memories as thick as she could. And my best memories growing up was being able to get together out there in Poppy's house. Us grandkids be out there playing pool and whatever else and having a good old time. Got loaded down with G.I. Joes and everything else you can imagine. But Christmas was an absolutely special time, and I loved it because I got the big family. Whenever Mike and Gail would come in, they had that Doberman named Duchess. I remember so many different things, but I really wish there were a lot more of you that are here that could have known my Nana. I've missed her ever since. I remember how much it hurt my mom, how much it hurt all of you guys to lose her. And I also know that Poppy has never really been the same, like there was some huge piece of him that was always missing from that time forward. I can't imagine what a reunion that has been. I know Robin said these last few months that he would get frustrated when he couldn't remember people, remember names and things like that. And he'd say, oh, it's Dorothy's fault. If she were here, she'd keep them straight for me. Poppy got to where he didn't like to travel near as much, didn't like to get out of the house that much. But then again, that might have something to do with the fact that one of the few times he did get out, Adam picked him up for a wedding. Apparently drove a little too fast getting there to Pittsburgh. He was, and I'm going to use Robin's phrase, clenched up the whole way there as Adam took him on quite the adventure. When he got there, they asked him if he had a good trip. He said, hell, we got here in 30 minutes. Yet at the same time, he was also critical of the great Branson Ferris wheel because it didn't go fast enough. As fast as this thing goes, why would anybody pay for this? I would like to take a minute here and speak to the spiritual and philosophical reasons for gathering here today. Solomon wrote the book of Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament. Some of the most difficult passages in the whole Bible can be found in the 12th chapter of Ecclesiastes. Solomon began reflecting on what it means to grow old. He says, remember now your Creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult days come. And the years draw near when you say, I have no pleasure in them. What he's going to do is he's going to describe all of the things that is the travail of growing old, starting there with the depression that sets in as you age. While the sun and the light, the moon and the stars are not darkened, and the clouds will not return after the rain, is his way of describing things like dementia and having a foggy mind. He says, in the day when the keepers of the house tremble, that's a reference to what happens to your legs the older you get, and they get weaker and they get weaker. And the strong men bow down, which is a reference to the shoulders, and you begin to stoop. When the grinders cease because they are few, which is a reference to what happens to your teeth as they slowly. And those that look through the windows grow dim, as you can't see as well as you once did. When the doors are shut in the streets because you can't do the things that you used to. And the sound of grinding is low because you begin being hard of hearing. And remember, a lot of Thanksgivings when we'd be there enjoying Tom and Robin and all these guys, and we'd try to pray for a meal and everything like that. And Poppy's going to talk all the way through the meal because he has no idea that there was a prayer going on. When one rises up at the sound of a bird, which is a reference to sleeplessness. All the daughters of music are brought low. They're afraid of height and of terrors in the way. When the almond tree blossoms, which is a reference to gray hair. Not as something I think Poppy had to go through because, well, as you can see, we skipped that step. All right. The grasshopper is a burden. The desire fails, and a man goes to his eternal home, and the mourners go about the streets. Remember your Creator before the silver cord is loosed, or the golden bowl is broken, which is a reference to a stroke, or the pitcher shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the well, which is a reference to a heart attack. Then the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. I think Cassie said it best yesterday when she said something that Poppy had said to her. Getting old ain't for sissies. I would remind you, though, that despite the utterly terrifying and saddening aspects of aging that Solomon brings out here, he began by saying this: remember now your Creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult days come. When Poppy was a young man, finally able to drive, he pursued a relationship with Christ. He never really attended until he could drive and take himself to a little Methodist church in Pawnee, and it was there that he was saved and baptized. You guys said yesterday that you remembered how routine-oriented his day was. He wanted to get up every morning with Nana, have that cup of coffee, and read the paper. He wanted to go to church. He served as an elder in the church. When I asked you guys yesterday specifically about the things you learned from Poppy, the first thing you mentioned was his work ethic. Poppy was a hard worker all of his days. He told Cassie, use your body or you'll lose it. He was always willing to help a neighbor. He was hospitable. When there was a tornado warning in the area, he had a tornado shelter, and Robin said yesterday that the whole neighborhood would be in the tornado shelter, and he'd be the one out there looking for the weather. I know Mike said a few different times that the thing he remembers most is just times going out on that milk route with him. He was always well dressed, shirt perfectly pressed, and he worked hard all of his days. Robin mentioned that his biggest fear was being put in a nursing home and not being able to do the things and to be able to work and to stay busy. He loved lawn work, trimming hedges, weed eating to the very end. My last real memory is that day we had this summer to get together and cut down a tree out there on the edge of the property. You know, when we, for the most part, sat back and worried about what in the world Micah was doing. Whether he was sliding down a tree, sliding down from a rope from the top of the tree, whatever it was. That same day that Shep decided to start up the tractor all by himself. And then proclaimed, that was awesome. I'm so grateful for Robin and for the fact that he never went to a nursing home, because he was cared for to the end by someone who loved him deeply, and even with her own physical struggles, served him to the very end. Love you, Robin. I know Tim and Ginger served him there at the end as well. I know that Ginger was an angel, and that she wasn't an angel, mainly because she had cold hands. I'll say one more thing before I close. I can't stop thinking about the difference between these last years for Poppy and his current existence as he spends eternity side by side with Nana worshiping the Lord. He had dementia. He was hard of hearing. And at the end, he experienced some isolation as he struggled with the effects and rules and procedures that accompany COVID. Do you know how eternity is described? One of my favorite verses in the Bible comes from 1 Corinthians 13, which is, as you know, the love chapter. It's in the last verses of the chapter where we find these words, verses 8 through 12. It says this: love never fails. But whether there are prophecies, they'll fail. Whether there's tongues, they'll cease. Where there's knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now, catch this, for now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. I know you're cold. Who gets this? As you realize he's no longer confused. He knew more in his first seconds of heaven than he'd ever known his whole life. He and Nana have perfect knowledge, heavenly knowledge. The first time the word know that's used here in these verses when it says, for now we know in part, it's a reference to the fact that we only have partial knowledge here. And even when our minds are at their best, we still only have partial knowledge here. For now we see as in a mirror dimly, but then we shall know him face to face. We shall know just as we have also already been known. Can you imagine? No confusion, no longer hard of hearing, no longer isolated. He has perfect fellowship there, and we rejoice because of that. He'll never be locked out of the car in a pouring rainstorm again. He spent these last years staring out the window at the birds there in the yard and on the bird feeders, and like those birds, he's no longer held by the limitations of this flesh. I'd ask just briefly, and it is a little cold. Are there anything that anybody else wants to say? Any stories anybody wants to share real quick before I pray at this point?
Just real quick, talking about his work ethic, and reminded me of another Walmart story. They were taking him out of produce, and so I called the manager and I said, "Hey, they haven't had clothes. Is he not working well?" And he goes, "He's the hardest worker I got." He says, "But one of these days I'm going to have to answer why I have an 85-year-old guy lifting 50-pound bags of potatoes." And the other story was a pretty deep snowstorm one year, and I called to just to find out if everybody's okay. Found out that Dad got up several hours before he had to go to work so he could dig his way out to the street. He left 2 hours just to get to Walmart, driving that slow. He works that shift. He was the only guy that showed up. All the younger guys couldn't get out. And then the manager came to him and said, "Hey, Bob, if we make you a pallet back here in the back, could you lay down for a couple hours? Because nobody else came in for the next shift." He said, "Yeah, I can do that." But that was my dad. I mean, I've never seen anybody work so hard, and I think that's why I decided I didn't want to work that hard and started studying in school. But you know, it's a blessing to feel his presence in my heart, and I'm just glad you guys are all here. So thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mike.
That's the guy that's inappropriate. Or chicken Annie stories. Always love chicken Annies.
Quite a few occasions there.
And I know you're recording, so Aunt Connie, we love you. Sorry you can't be here. That was.
Let me pray, and you guys can greet one another as you say your final goodbyes. Father, I thank you for the opportunity we've had here today to number one, to sing of your praises and be grateful for the hope that we have in you, in your old rugged cross. God, I thank you for the family that you've placed me in, for the legacy, the spiritual legacy, physical legacy, the traits that I see in myself and in my family members that we share with all of these other family members here, Father. I'm grateful for the family you placed me in and the memories that I have of my Bobby and Nana. God, I thank you, and I'm so eternally grateful for the hope that we have in you, because Bobby gets to see a way better tomorrow. God, I pray that you would bring peace and healing on us as a family as we move from mourning to laughing to mourning again, and we wrestle with this over the coming weeks. Please continue to be with us now as we get ready to depart. It's in your